Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents, and welcome to the 2021 Summer Vacation Series. We're getting to know comics from around the world who performed on our Isolation Comedy online show in 2020. I'm your host, Valerie, and sometime co-host Ms. Purrington will join us if she wants. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about mostly Austin comedy. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, live shows, and an events page for live shows in Austin and Houston. If you're a comic in those cities and you want your show featured on the calendar, go to the events page and click Submit a Show to complete the short survey. Now let's get back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the Podcast Project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin, check that, global comedy scene fantastic. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, I am going to be traveling to Canada. Oh, Canada. And I'm going to be talking to somebody who hosted a show. We'll find out, figure it out with our guest. He hosts a music podcast, which I don't know how to say this. xBummerxBoysx, who knows? He and his co-hosts talk about songs that make them sad every week. We'll find out more about that too. Back in the time machine in 2017, Cult MTL, which means Montreal, named him one of the top 10 comedians in Montreal. And his debut album, Cherubic, came out, Cherubic? We'll figure that out too. Came out in 2020, and he was named one of the 100 best things in comedy in 2020 by the Comedy Bureau, which is based in LA. One of our favorite comics from 2020 Isolation Comedy online show, Comedy Wham Presents, our guest, Mike Carrozza.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Excited for all the detours. Ooh, I'm rubbing my hands.
many detours. That seemed to be from your performances on our online show. You seem to love a detour.
What can I say? Big fan of Todd Glass. I will just off the bat. Bummer Boys. It's spelled like a bad hardcore band, so it's like xBummerxBoysx, but it's like you're listening to Life Ruiner or some band that's super straight edge. But we're just two dummies who love emo music and have some friends along the way who like to talk about sad songs. So we're Bummer Boys. We thought it was a fun idea at first, and then we realized it is not smart. But we're in. It's a year and some change going strong. So I can't change it.
Very nice.
And I go Cherubic, but I know it's pronounced Cherubic. It's supposed to be like emphasis on the ooh. Never like the ooh sound. I like Cherubic, like a cherub, but it's the adjective of cherub, so it's Cherubic. I've always preferred it that way, although I recognize it's incorrect. But sue me, okay? Sue me. Very easy to find.
Well, as a press, I should have done my homework, Mike. So,
Hey, I won't take that away from you. If that's how you feel about it, that's how you feel about it. But look at what it's gotten me to do. It's gotten me to talk about my thing. And we are already going.
Yeah.
That's part of the point is we're talking about what I do. We're talking about what you do. We're talking about comedy. It's already off to a good start.
It is.
It's happening.
It is.
I can't say, oh, I should have done my job. It's like, well, didn't you? Maybe that was a sneaky way of doing it, huh?
Maybe. Now, I feel bad for those of you who are listening because you do not get to see the really cool view that I get to. We record this in Zoom, but only the podcast audio gets released. And the background, which is a real background behind Mike, is almost as fascinating as all of his credits. There's at least 2 guitars. There's a full traditional, not one of those dumb electronic drum kits. There's a table off to the side that has all sorts of stuff. There's a headless cardboard torso.
Oh, it's not headless.
I know. I could.
That's
there
a
we
James
go.
Dean
There
cardboard cutout. There's that handsome face. It's only headless so I can get the
Right.
computer facing me a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that table full of Magic the Gathering cards. So you know I'm a real fucking nerd.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because I write for a Magic website. And
You do. Oh my gosh.
Steeped in Magic.
Wow.
That's all I've been doing aside from trying to do more comedy online where, you know, with the States opening up, it's not happening so often. And then we don't have as many people who like to produce shows here in Canada, especially when most of the time the people that I would draw in are American. My following, if I could call it that, is chiefly American, which is interesting to me. But
yeah.
Either way, I'm excited to just get back out to doing shows, and it seems like it's closer to the horizon for us, and it's already happening for you guys. And
yeah, hardcore happening. Exciting. Yeah. Austin is on fire, if you will, with shows.
Austin's having a moment. A lot of people coming down there for tax breaks.
Yes, that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, Mike, I know we have gone off to the races already, but I do have an official icebreaker question.
Got it. So let's reestablish the ice. Let's blow cool air.
Yes. Can you please pick one word to describe your past?
My past. Sheltered is what I would pick. Huh. Probably. Yeah. I feel like I learned a lot of stuff later on that I would have probably learned sooner if there wasn't such an emphasis on like being told what's right and fitting into that mold of like my family being like, well, you don't do this or you don't do that, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know, or like the environments I was in, my schools were like just not very diverse, and so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say sheltered is probably the best way to describe my past. Mm-hmm. Although probably not to the extent as like some people be like they were pretty sheltered. Like I probably not to like that extent, but I consider myself to be sheltered in a way that makes me pretty naive. Yeah. So which I like about myself. So I'm grateful for it.
Your personality on and off stage feels very consistent. You have a very silly way about you. Is that something that you've always been, or is that something that as you grew out of feeling sheltered that you took on?
I'll say that I've always kind of leaned towards everybody have a nice time unless you're hurting somebody, and just didn't have a way to put it into words. So it would be like, let's, you know, hey, this is a tense situation, time to be a clown, or you know, somebody's sad, I'm going to listen to you until you get it out. Or if you need me to, you know, pratfall, that's going to happen too. Like, I think it's always been that way. However, I will say it's not as automatic or immediate. Like there are times where my immediate reaction isn't benefit of the doubt on somebody, but rather very aggressive and angry, which is surprising coming from me, but I am human. And if somebody, you know, nobody expects me to react to that video of that Walmart employee knocking out that guy without a mask in favor of the guy knocking out the guy without a mask. But here I am thinking, yeah, I think that's fine. And you know what? If they try to sue, that's bullshit. Like there should be no repercussion for that person. They did the right thing, which should have been happening this whole time. Let's, you know, I'm not here to say let's drop kick everybody who isn't wearing masks or who like fought the mask stuff or the safety protocols. But I am saying that I think that everybody who participates in anti-mask rallies and has in the past should at least not experience joy ever again in their lives. And that's what I think. Nothing violent.
Yeah.
Nothing violent, just a sincere curse.
Harsh words from Canada, from our neighbors to the north.
We are terrible. Have you seen the news from this month? Buddy, this is, it is. Gotta look at our treatment of the indigenous population here, the native folk here. Buddy, wait until you dive into Canada's history and ignorance thereof.
Yeah, we actually had quite an eye-opening it was 2 years ago. My son and I, we love Canada. We absolutely love Canada. Last year we were supposed to go to we were supposed to go to Toronto. We've been to Vancouver and Montreal. I've been to Toronto, but this is traveling with my son. And 2 years ago, we went to Vancouver, and they have some pretty amazing Indigenous peoples museums. And, we're the dumb, ugly Americans. We're thinking, oh, Canada is so great, maple leaf syrup and hockey. And we just realized, oh my God, what a blighted history. Yeah, kind of like America.
We're a country just like every other country with many centuries worth of repressed trauma swept under the rug for the sake of continual oppression. So it's not we're not angels by any stretch, but there is some sort of like there is a positive thing to this kind of coming to light and being like, oh, we're fucked. Good. Let's fix everything. Although you can't fix the fact that like 215 kids' bodies were recovered this last week. You know what I mean? Like that's not something you could fix.
Right.
Yeah. But God, it's good that there's a light being shed on it and all that. But again, the mission statement is, and I'm learning this as I get older, is that the only thing that I can relate to Ellen DeGeneres on is like, don't make your whole thing being the happy nice guy, which I was like too late when I heard that. But I think there's a difference between like, I am generally a happy nice guy, but it's because I want safety and comfort for everybody who isn't inflicting pain onto others.
Yeah.
And so when I say I hope people who are anti-mask don't experience joy, it is literally because they have contributed to the factors that have killed thousands upon thousands of people.
Yeah.
And that's like a niceness there, in that it is preventative, but at the same time, it's definitely a wish for pain. And I am, I guess, causing pain in that way. So they've got a lot of self-reflecting to do.
Yeah. Well, with all those fun topics out of the way.
It's a heavy one.
Yeah.
What is this? Top heavy? It's falling over after oh boy. What's this? A dude who only does chest day and grabs a couple beers and is lightheaded? Because this one's falling to the ground after a couple, you know what I'm saying? Can you tell I don't know what alcohol is?
I mean, that's just un-Canadian, I think.
Yeah. Look, very un-Canadian of me to not be a drinker. It's because I don't like the feeling nor the taste. It's not because I had like, everybody's like, oh, are you sober? Is that something? It's like, no, I'll have like a shot to celebrate my friend's engagement or something.
Yeah.
But it's usually like mostly cranberry juice. And it's I don't like the taste of alcohol. And like, I'm like, if I'm gonna drink something, I want it to taste good. What is the point?
Right.
And then I remember being like a teenager and be like, this stuff tastes awful. Why are we drinking this? And they're like, so we can talk to girls. And I'm like, I talk to girls already. What is the okay, good. Then I could ship this off out of the way.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm un-Canadian, and that's why you'll find me. What's happening in Portland, Oregon? Helium Comedy Club. Say hello to your boy. I'm coming there eventually, one day. Tell your clubs. Austin Comedy Places, the one place I like, closed down. I can't believe it. I swear to God that.
Which one? Cap
City.
But Cap's coming back.
Okay, good. Well, then, Cap City, if you're listening. I had such a blast in Austin.
When did you come to Austin?
I came down in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
MK Paulson was still there.
I love MK.
Yeah, sweet baby MK Paulson.
Sweet baby boy.
I came down for a wedding in Fort Worth, and then after the wedding, a friend of mine at the wedding from living in Austin, because we all went to school here together, and so there was the wedding. My buddy drove us back to Austin. I stayed with her for 2 nights, got a ton of shows in 2 nights, and excuse me, MK was like the first comic I met at the open mic at Camp City.
Oh.
And it was one of those things where like, are you MK? And MK's like, you must be Mike. And I was like, what? Yes, I guess. And then we found out that Steph Tolev both messaged both of us being like, you're both sweet angels. I swear to fucking God, if you don't hang out, I'm going to be so mad. It makes no sense that you wouldn't hang out together. Now go make each other laugh. And we both had like the show jitters of like, oh, I wanted to try new stuff, but also I want to do good so you laugh. And it's like, no, I want you to think I'm funny. You're great. You don't have to worry about it. And so we just had that kind of fun, and it was great. We saw a bunch of comics like I want to, oh God, I'm blanking on name. Allison O'Connor, Nikita Redcar. Very funny. Danny Palumbo was in town. I just
none of these comics live in Austin
anymore. Right. Right, but this was the time. Oh, Aaron Brooks.
Oh God.
And Murph and Andy Murphy.
Andrew. Yep.
Those guys are still there, right?
Yep. Or Andrew did they leave? No, Andrew is the only one. Aaron Brooks is in LA too. Yep. I would pay a lot of money to see you and MK together on a show, because I would probably have to bring a change of pants, because the combined energy is probably very much like nuclear fusion, because you're high energy, he's so high energy. That
I know.
You two work on that, because he's coming through Austin, a little bit more. With the COVID, he's got family, of course,
right?
And,
he's out here.
So when you can travel and you can do it safely.
That's the plan. Is like, when I can travel and I can do it safely. Hey, American government, ease up on those visas. Why don't you give me the one that you gave me last time that I couldn't use, not even once.
Oh.
And then also, let's try to here's my addendum to the show. Not just me, not just MK, triple bill, Deborah DiGiovanni, the most energy on the show possible. Okay.
I don't know if I know her.
Ooh, lucky you. You get to experience this for the first time. Deborah DiGiovanni is a Canadian comic who is now in LA. The moment she got to LA and started doing shows out there, I started getting messages from all my American friends who would be like, do you know this Deborah DiGiovanni lady? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, nobody wants to follow her. It's impossible to follow her. She's too fucking good. In fact, the headliner I was working with like 2 weeks out after shows up to the club. I watched the show. I'm hanging out. And then after the show, we're at the bar hanging, and he goes, so you know Deb, right? And I was like, yeah. He's like, nobody can handle being on a show after her.
Wow.
Everybody dies the most painful death because the audience is tapped out of laughing too hard. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, welcome to our world. Literally every Canadian comic could not follow Deborah DiGiovanni. And that is how it's meant to be. It's what made us stronger. There is definitely a group of Canadian comics who regularly had to follow Deb, and you can tell that they got better as a result. What
I've heard her name. So okay, all right. Well,
incredible comic.
Okay, well,
her album Lady Jazz was nominated for a Juno Award last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, well, you work on that triple bill show.
I'll text all of them. I bet we have a group chat in here somewhere.
Yeah, do it. Say I want it. MK's like, oh, Valerie's getting a little big for her britches now. She just wants these shows.
He'll get it. He'll understand though.
Oh, absolutely.
He'll be like, yeah, we all want those shows.
Let's get back to talking about Mike.
Me?
Yes. How did you start?
I thought I was talking about.
Well, yes, you are, but I'm supposed to be, uncovering the, your beginnings in comedy, and then we'll get to more recent stuff. But what made you start comedy?
I've always really loved it. So growing up in Montreal, the Just for Laughs Festival is a huge deal here. Yeah. And every summer I see ads for it, and oh my God, this guy's coming and this guy's coming. And my dad would always be watching comedy on Whose Line Is It Anyway? It was always on TV, or whatever sketch group had reruns at the time, whether it's Kids in the Hall or Second City or the Comedy Channel was always on. Like I don't remember many of the cartoons. A lot of people from my age group were like, these are the cartoons that shaped me. I'd be like, oh, I don't know any of those because I was watching like Friends and Seinfeld and the Just for Laughs galas that they would have on reruns all the time. And I'm pretty sure there's like elementary school notebooks filled with like what is supposed to be my math homework, but ends up being like me trying to phonetically spell Mike Birbilia's name and Mitch Hedberg and Maria Bamford and just like keep scratching Galifianakis over and over again.
You're going for the tough names.
Oh, just really liking them all, But I always watched those and I always thought this looks like so much fun. I can't believe, they get to do this. What makes them so special? And my dad was like, well, that's their job. That's what they do. And I was like, cool. That sounds delightful. And I was always into jokes and I always liked comedy. Like the Scholastic Book Fair would run through and I would be buying the joke books from that. And I would, my dad used to tell me jokes he'd hear from work or read on the internet, and I would memorize them and tell them at school. And I got a reputation of being the joke guy who loves jokes and everything. So I ended up hosting events in elementary school telling jokes.
Wow.
So there's like, between grades who were performing songs on the recorder. So it's like one form of torture followed by another. So that's what I did. Like I hosted my elementary school graduation with the other funny guy, but did a lot of heavy lifting. Shout out to Taras. You're not listening to this. And then I hosted a bunch of events in high school when I learned my French a little bit better. And eventually in like CEGEP, which is the right before university. So we have in Quebec, we have like 5 years of high school. So it's elementary school 1 through 6, high school, secondary 1 through 5. So grade 11. And then we have 2 years before going to college. And then those 2 years, I started writing sketch. I started joining sketch groups and all this stuff and found out like I am going too fast for a lot of people. Like people are like treating it like this is an extracurricular thing. And I'm like, no, I just want to keep going. And so I remembered that stand-up is a one-person thing. And I decided I'm going to try this. I was listening to, in Montreal, Joey Elias used to host on AM radio like an hour of comedy or an hour and a half of comedy every night. And it would coincide with, me coming home from work from after school. And so I'd listen to that, and that's how I'd hear like Deborah DiGiovanni on the radio, and I'd hear, a bunch of different comics and like Arthur Simeon or like whoever. And eventually back then I was playing music in bands and I was playing solo music. And one of my friends was like, I need you to perform on the show. And it's an emergency. I need somebody to close out this folk show. And I was like, okay, but how about like the week after you put on a comedy show and I do a set on that? He's like, what? We've never done that before. I was like, I don't know how to do it anywhere else. I don't know about what open mics are. I know nothing about comedy. I'm guessing that if I do this show, I'll see if I like it and then dive into the world. And so I did that show, and on my first show, Robbie Hoffman was on, and it was honestly, I'm bringing her up right now because she just had a development announced with Showtime, and I'm just so proud of her.
Huh.
Robbie, like I don't know, I just can't stop smiling because the news hit last night, and Rivka's being developed, and it's so huge, and I'm very proud of Robbie Hoffman. I love you very, very much. Yeah.
I'm finding out that you're a huge cheerleader. I mean, you've dropped so many names, but all in the context of not, oh, Mike knows these people. It's you're like so excited for the things that they've done.
Yeah.
It's very sweet and endearing.
Yeah, well, that's how it. Look. I don't want to be like that's how it should be, but I believe I would. Look. It's just I don't like the cattiness or like the competitive element of like, well, they did put out a good product, but I'm up for a similar kind of job, and I don't want to be pumping that. It's like, no, do you know how often I try to like recommend so many Canadian comics, or like if I get an offer on Gig Salad for an online show or a gig near me, but I don't fit the criteria, the first thing I'm doing is like, here are the emails of like 5 other comics who would be great for this. And you should be getting in touch with them. Don't bother with this website right now because these are the guys that you're going to be looking for. And I don't think they have a profile on here. It makes no sense not to big each other up when somebody does something great.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're a lifelong creative between music and comedy in some form or another. This is what you live and breathe for, basically. That's a rare find. Where do I want to? There was something that you mentioned earlier about French, and I am a native French speaker, so of course, anytime somebody mentions French, I want to kind of explore that. Do you ever perform in French, or did you just need to learn French for school?
So I needed to learn French for school and like living in Montreal and stuff, and I actually just always wanted to be able to learn. Like, I think the pursuit of language and being able to converse with anybody, to communicate with other people, is super important. I think like if you have an opportunity to learn a language, even like piecemeal, and it's just like in the easiest way, go for it. There's no reason to say no. But I learned French because of circumstance. I went to a French high school. I opted for that. I thought it would be a good skill to have, and it has, I worked in retail in Montreal for a long time ago, so that's like the extent to which I've used it. Or being able to help here and there with people who speak French. I have tried comedy in French. However, I don't translate well to French. I don't I'm way more expressive in English. I tend to use like my full range of voice, and this is the language I have the best command over, whereas French, I'm a little bit pared down. My register tends to shift a little bit lower. I am fluent, but I do search for my words a tiny bit, and that does affect my confidence. And then the other thing is, I don't do like wordplay. I don't do like anything that would translate in a way that like, okay, here's a translation, and here it takes a bit of like finessing, and then it's a thing again. It's like, I don't do stories. I do like, what if this dumb idea I had, and I have to over explain it. And so I really have to have like the perfect command of the language to be able to convey that. However, another part of it is that French comedy is a different beast. Like, they don't like, it's like how you can divide English comedy into like, this guy's a one-liner, this guy's a story guy, this guy's like the edgiest fuck in the world, or like, all this kind of comedy. You got the alternative weirdos and like all that stuff. In French comedy, they have those, but then like the popular stuff is plagiarism a lot of the time, and like that's a tough thing to be around and not call it out. And also, like, the people who are doing excellent work and aren't plagiarists, like, awesome. I commend them, but I don't know what that is. Like, it doesn't connect with me. I don't connect with it. I've tried. It doesn't work. I'll try again, as long as they'll pay me what they pay French comedians. I'll 100% try again. I'm not above it. Give me money. Let me see if I can try one of my jokes in French. Est-ce que vous pensez si un chef est en couple avec un autre chef, quand ils s'embrassent, ils font comme moi, ils mouchent ensemble?
I watched the clip of that in English, so I know exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, chef's kiss.
Très bien, très bien.
That's it. Here's another fun aside, is that Magic the Gathering just released a card called Chef's Kiss. So I have a new signature card. It just is upsetting that it sucks. What's happening, MTG nerds? What up, my Magic heads? Fucking weirdos. What up?
My boyfriend is a big Magic nerd, and he's unfortunately taught my son So now my son's a magic nerd too.
It's just a fun game. It's a
Yeah.
good time. Yeah.
I tried to learn. My boyfriend tried his very best to try to teach me, and I just get very confused easily. So
That's all right.
yeah.
That's all
All
right.
right. Back to Mike.
Me.
You grew up in Montreal, so you
Correct.
saw Just for Laughs being such a big deal in Montreal. Your first time on Just for Laughs was around 2016? Was it
I
before
actually
then?
don't know. It must have been around then. It could have been 2015.
That's what my paper says.
Oh, okay. Well then good, because I don't know. Thing about Just for Laughs is that I had been volunteering and interning at Just for Laughs for many years, and then ultimately ended up being like, hey, we need somebody to help out with PR this summer. I'd be like, sweet, do I get a badge? They'd be like, yep. I'd be like, great. And I'd go see all the shows. Or like, hey, the head of TV and the head of the festival need an assistant. Can you come in 3 days a week? I'd be like, you got it. Then I get like this badge that means I have to escort like huge names around the city. And I've been lucky to have like access in that sense. And then eventually what happened is that like I was there so frequently every year that a lot of the acts started recognizing me, and I made friends with a lot of the comics that I had never, that I'd found through the festival. And me, I like being as supportive as I can. So if I see some new face being very nervous, I like to be like, hey man, it's a huge deal. Yes, correct. But also the nerves are only going to hurt you. So come outside. Let's hang out. Let's chill. We'll get you talking to this guy who is the head over here, who does not like talking to very many people, but I've been talking to him, kind of facilitating here and there. And eventually what that meant is like, I didn't have to work for the festival to get a badge. I'd get like a guest pass from one comic or another. And then eventually they started just booking me on shows. The first time I did Just for Laughs, I did a guest spot for a comedian, and I don't remember who it was the first time, but I was open for a comedian because they said, he's around, I like him, make him open for me. And the festival was like, great, no problem. It's very easy to take a guy we're not paying that you like and get him on the stage, and sweet, no more coordination. We know he's free. He's going to be stoked. Good for us. And then eventually that just started happening more and more. And when I got the festival the first year, they booked me on one or two shows. And then I was like, well, now I have free reign to campaign for myself. So I started like messaging comics that I somewhat knew, or like didn't quite know, but had a decent relationship with one of their friends who'd vouched for me, and was like, let me get on. I would love to open for you. I've already got these shows. I know you don't have an opener. I can make this super easy for you by being your opener for 2 nights. Awesome. And that's become some friendships. Like, nice. It's been very nice to be able to like have been just the guy who's hanging around Just for Laughs to being like, oh, I'm on Just for Laughs. Or I'm helping with PR, but I've got a set later tonight, the opening for Jermaine Fowler and the Kari, the rapper he brought along with him. And it's going to be a fun, weird show, and I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a good,
It's very organic, which you don't hear a lot. I mean, the people that I've had an opportunity to talk to that get on JFL, they've gone through a grueling audition process. They didn't get on the first or second time. You showed your mettle both through working for the festival, but also you were clearly doing the legwork, but in Montreal with your shows.
I'd also showcased as well. Like I've also like the first 2 years that I was on the festival, I didn't get on the festival due to the showcase. But after that, they know me as like, now we know he's solid enough, or like they booked me 1 year and 2 years in a row. And then I think the last year I got to have my own show in the festival. It was an outdoor show, Figure It Out, which will eventually come back, I think, at some point. It's just, what? Yeah. No shows happening here yet. So
Are you in Toronto now, or are you back in Montreal?
I'm back in Montreal.
Okay.
I moved back in October due to the pandemic. I couldn't justify spending $1.50 on a tiny box that I share with 3 people and not being able to leave it for shows, which was the whole deal.
Okay. Yeah. Ugh. Well, but you've got a great, you've got a great setup.
Oh, I have it great here. It's, the trade-off with being in a tiny box out there was that I would leave the box, you know, and I would go do shows, and I'd be 15 minutes from all these shows. I didn't need to have a drum set out here. You know, I didn't need to, because like this stuff I used to like sell some music, or like, hey, you need a theme song for a podcast? Let me see what I can come up with. Or, hey, a short film needs music. I'll record something that I will write, and then you can have it arranged and send it elsewhere and have it produced big time. But, you know, that's the kind of thing that I've been doing now. But in Toronto, I just had like my bed, my dresser, a small table that I used for a desk to record my podcast at. And, you know, that was it. And then I'd leave for a show or work, and I'd be there in 15 minutes. Now, if I need to get somewhere, I need to borrow a car. I'm on the road for at least 35 minutes. That's without traffic. So the trade-offs are, you know, but what are you going to do? You know, we're waiting for this thing to go away, or at least be manageable. I get my second dose in August, which I got my first one in May. You guys, it's like first dose, 2 weeks, second dose. That's how you do it. That's how it's supposed to be. Canada's like, we've only got so many. It's like, no, you've got plenty. It's that you're not willing to acknowledge the amount of people refusing to take the vaccine. How about you just stick it in me already, you fucking idiots? Instead of letting it go to waste, I will take any of your vaccines. And I will feel less paranoid, less hermiting. Like there's a surprising number of people that I've learned have developed agoraphobia in this time. And it's people that I didn't expect to have that. And like, I'm glad that when I moved back the first 3 months, I didn't leave the house. Like I just stayed inside. So I'm surprised that didn't happen to me. And I'm grateful for it, because I'll take walks now and get around. But, you know, take care of yourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, good for the community, right? So you have the music to help you earn an income. You didn't have the shows. Did you do a lot of online shows, or was that something that you kind of struggled with? You're so like wacky and absurdist, and I'm sorry if you don't like that.
No, that's fine. That's label. What I like.
But it seems like if you're a little along those lines and you're willing to go with the flow, that you know, the online might be a way for you to at least get that comedy energy out.
Right. I have done a few online shows, just not. I would have preferred having a regular show to do without it being such a headache to produce, because with the volatility of, you know, people's emotions changing day to day meant a lot of comics were canceling. And so when I ran a show for a little while, and it was just like a Skype conversation that I'd put on Twitch. When I ran that show, it was fine, but the whole week I was stressing. And then I'd eat my dinner way too quickly. I'd come down to set up. I'd be like, I don't have any new joke to do off the top, so I'm going to riff on what's going on. Everything is too sad for me to riff on. I'm going to bring on the next comic who I just got their text saying that they're canceling. So I'm gonna, hey, Caleb Simon, can you do earlier? And he'll be like, for sure, dude, fucking whatever. And like, we'll talk for a little bit, but the entire time I'm frantically texting friends of mine being like, can you fill in last minute? Or like bugging the person that's supposed to go last to be like, can you do an extra 10 minutes with me? Do you think we could sustain that? Or, you know, that kind of thing. And so it ended up being so much more of a headache. And I wish it wasn't that, because I would love to be doing a regular show. I would love to be doing a weekly again. And I love doing the regulars. Like I love doing the showcase Zoom shows like Comedy Wham. I love doing it. I got to do Hot Tub, which was like, what? I got to do Hot Tub.
Wow, nice. Me?
Like I was so thrilled when they emailed me and said yes. Like I so excited about it. But I have done like Zoom shows. I've done Zoom corporate shows as well. And those are something. But the thing about the Zoom comedy shows where it's like, that's the point, and we know we've come here for it. They usually have a group of people who are ready to laugh, who are your touchstones, who are going to be like visible or, at least contributing to the audience part of it that helps it make it a show. And so I would love to be doing more of them. I would love to. However, the United States of America has done way better at vaccinating its population than the Canadian people have. And that means that a lot of the shows that I have done that I've enjoyed, or a lot of the shows that I would have been able to keep doing or been invited to do, are no longer being held, or it's not happening as often anymore because online shows are just not happening out there anymore. It's live. Canane's in a van on the road texting people, tweeting at people being like, hey, Albuquerque, I'm around. And they're like, shit, dude, my driveway is way open. You know what I mean? And like, that's the kind of shit you guys can do right now.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm out here being like, if I go outside past a certain time, I could get $1,000 ticket, which is no longer true. They just got rid of the curfew. But I'm really excited for this. This stuff to like no longer require any measures in place, and but I wouldn't want them to be lifted too early because I want people to be safe. My dumb jokes are not worth you coming to a show and catching this third variant of this deadly virus that will kill you or at least fuck up your breathing for the rest of your life. And if you're so desperate, you can buy my album Cherubic, available now. Okay. And fuck it. If you want a show, I'll put on a show for you. If you want it that bad, it's nice to feel wanted. Okay. But like the fact that people are out there risking their lives for something like I thought it was nuts to me to see an audience so huge packed into that room in Austin the night of a Peg and Tony Hinchcliffe show, and being like, the first thing was like, oh shit, racist stuff is happening. The second thing is like, what the fuck? Everybody's like shoulder to shoulder in this video.
Yeah.
And so it was two terrifying things happening. But it's not terrifying to you guys because you guys are fine.
Or a lot of us
for the most part.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like, oh shit, if I see anybody hanging out at a park, I'm like, you guys fucking living together? What's the deal here?
Are there renegades? Because I think in August, September, that's when our renegades started showing up and started doing shows. Do you have renegades up there who are like, hey, fuck it, I'm going to do a show?
Not really.
Or is it too difficult?
Montreal has no... First of all, the curfew makes it impossible because we had a curfew before that said like, what was it, 8 p.m., 7 p.m.?
Whoa.
I was in already. So if you didn't have like an authorization for work or something, you got pulled over, you'd have a fine or whatever. But like the shows were impossible to do. You have to do them in parks. Montreal is a difficult case because like it's French and English. You don't know who's going to show up when or what. If you ambush a park, it's going to be like, these fucking guys are speaking in a language I don't know, and I want to enjoy it, but I can't. And so now it's just a loud thing happening at me. And then there's like language laws where it's like a public performance, like has to be a certain percentage of French I'm not familiar with. So it like, if there are renegades who are putting on shows, first of all, how dare they not invite me? Second of all, I haven't heard of them.
Yeah.
And the Comedy Nest is our club here in Montreal. We used to have two clubs, Comedy Works, rest in peace, and also in shambles. What a mess that place became. But the Comedy Nest is a phoenix from the ashes. That place is like fantastic. They've done an amazing job over there. And they've been building over the last couple of years to a point where it's like they used to cancel shows on the weekends regularly with top tier headliners. But now it's like sold out. And now with the pandemic, they couldn't be open. But they posted recently that they are able to be reopened and they'll be doing outdoor shows as well. So that's the hope that I have for here. And also the other hope is Just for Laughs didn't throw in the towel on this summer's festival. They mentioned that there have been Just for Laughs showcases in the States that I've seen. Also some controversy that I don't want on the record that I can tell you about after. But, Just for Laughs is happening. and it's a hybrid of online and in person. And if it's in person here in Montreal, I hope I get to be part of that. I would love to be part of that.
Yeah.
As long as the agreement is everybody involved has to be vaccinated, or at the very least, like first dose vaccinated. And they also have to be caring individuals who understand the severity of this virus and who understand that it's like not a fucking joke, that also would like to laugh at jokes, like real jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Right.
that I talk so much.
Well, lucky for you, this is an interview podcast, so that's actually the objective. Is
good. Okay. I won't leave you with a shortage of a response.
You released your debut album in the middle of the pandemic. I think we had you on, and you were about to release the album. It was really, really close in timing. Was that weird, releasing an album that presumably you recorded pre-pandemic shutdown?
Very strange.
Yeah.
I recorded it in October of 2019.
Okay.
And it was meant to be released in May of 2020. That's why on the album it says, there's a joke where I'm like, I need you guys to pretend that this is coming out in May, because that's when the album's coming out. And then I go, so Halloween's coming up. Technically true, but the thing is, it was 2 weeks before Halloween, and it was supposed to come out in May. And so it was like 3 meta jokes in one, which I was stoked on, but the audience was like, sure, we'll support this. So the whole plan was have the release in May. I had a visa of sorts that I would be able to work with to come on down through a company and then spend some time out there after the fact. So I was working for a company that were going to have me do a couple shows out there, and I'd be like, well, now I'm on vacation time, and I'm going to go to these other cities. Plan was to go back to Denver. Plan was to go back to Boise. Plan was to go back to Seattle, like a bunch of spots in the States that I've really enjoyed and that were very receptive to me, and to kind of do like a tiny tour, but then also hit Blonde Medicine's like HQ town in the Bay Area and be like, hey, what's up? Thank you for putting this out. Give Dom and Jess a big hug. And then also pick up what I was supposed to have physical release copies. Like I was going to do, physical merch. I was going to do my album in CD and like also vinyl. That was the plan. But, if I can't pick them up, the duties on it and having them shipped is just an utter nightmare. And at the same time, there was this huge fire that took out like one of the 2 vinyl production companies.
Oh my gosh.
That made it impossible to get the order done. And ultimately, when I talked to Dom at Blonde Medicine, we were like, okay, so what do we think? This pandemic can't possibly last till May, right? And he's like, right. I think I'm pretty optimistic. But at the same time, we were like, we should definitely look into delaying this if you want to still do the tour and come down and hang and stuff. And I was like, I would love that, but there is a line on the album deliberately being like, it's in May. I wanted it to be like an excuse to be like, instead of having to show up at the border and be like, I'm coming down to hang out, and they'll be like, for what reason? I can be like, it's my birthday, and they'll be like, fuck yeah, dude, your birthday rules. You got family out there, sick, cool. Instead of having to answer questions of being like, what are you gonna go do down there? And I'm like, hang out with some friends. It's like, what, you don't have friends in Canada? It's like, I have plenty of friends in Canada. What are you saying? What are you insinuating? And they're like, well, why do you have to come to your friends? It's like, because they're my American friends who live in America. And they're like, that's not good enough. You gotta be detained. And so if you need to know what every interaction with me at the border is like, because the border agents can't fucking chill with the fact that I'm going to do one bar show for $20 that I'm immediately spending on mozzarella sticks for $17 at the same bar. Oh, I'm stealing job. I could have gotten the sticks for free if I just spoke to the cook, like, because he offered me weed, and I said, I'd rather you told me this before. I'd have taken mozzarella sticks. You know what I'm saying? So like, my point is, fucking borders. It was so weird releasing this album in the pandemic, but it has led to like some really cool stuff. Like, we still did like we still did the publicity for it. We still did the press and everything. So instead of showing up in town and being like, I'm doing these shows and doing radio, I got to do Doug Loves Movies. I got to do Dumb People Town. I got to be on like a bunch of podcasts that I didn't think that I was going to be able to be a guest on.
Yeah.
And it all came from being like, well, it's a new age. Let's do this. Let's see what we can handle. You know, I got to hang out with the Sklar brothers, who I hadn't seen. Like, the Sklar brothers were a signpost for my beginnings at JFL. Like, when I started interning there, I met them and I was like, hey, I'm just a volunteer here, but I just wanted to let you guys know I'm a huge fan and have a good night. And they were like, no, come on back. And then they gave me this Sklar treatment. They were like, we can tell he's a comedian. That's what I was thinking. He's a comedian. Like,
you're so good.
Like, so I was like, you a year in? No, maybe a little bit more than a year. No, I'm thinking a little less. He's a less than a year in. Definitely less than a year in, you know. So they did do that back and forth. And I was like, this is my favorite. I love these guys. And then when I finally got JFL for the first time booked on the festival, that was the first time they'd been back in a couple years. And I saw them at the bar and I was like, are you fucking serious? They're like, hey, are you still interning? I was like, I got the festival. And they're like, shots. So it was you know, but to be able to do their podcast that I've listened to,
that's amazing,
because of this whole pandemic, there have been some upsides. You know, I wouldn't have been able to do Comedy Wham. I wasn't going to pass through Austin. I got to do it because Colton was like, your album's great. You know, let's get you on this, please.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, you didn't even have to say, please let me in. You know what I mean? I started a podcast with my buddy in Seattle because of this pandemic. I'm able to keep Bummer Boys going because we're not in Toronto anymore. I'm not in Toronto anymore. Alex is, but so there have been some upsides, and I can foresee some podcasts remaining remote for sure, or at least like remaining to have access to certain guests, and you don't have to be in certain places to be able to reach out to somebody, and you can make a whole day of it. Like, it works so well.
Yeah. My podcast has always relied on like being across the table from somebody,
right,
and making like a connection that I thought you could not make over Zoom. And so that's part of, aside from being very busy putting on the online show last year, I tried a couple of Zoom interviews and I just felt like I couldn't build that connection.
It's still very weird. It's not ideal in the slightest. Like, it's definitely, I was talking to another amazing Canadian comic, Juno Award-winning comedian, Ivan Decker, my sweet, sweet boy who's getting married soon. I love him so much. I interviewed him actually for a website that I'm writing for, Partner in Pearl. I think it's coming out next week. But Ivan and I were talking about how Zoom shows and Zoom in general is so difficult because 90% of communication is nonverbal. And he says, horses don't speak English, but we've been talking to horses forever.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and so the idea being that we lose, you know, there's a feeling in the air when somebody walks into a room.
Yeah.
There's a feeling like your gut is off when it comes to when it comes to performing live. You can kind of tell when somebody, like an audience, is going to tighten up on something, or like you can feel an audience, something in the room disturbing, or like on the other side of things, that can affect the audience kind of spreading the joy. Like the comfort, a small room with more people is better than a big room with a ton of people, because a small room forces those people to be so close to each other, and you get that giggle belly effect where, like, if like I went to theater school, sue me. If you're like doing this giggle belly thing and you're all laying down on each other's stomachs and somebody laughs, eventually everybody's laughing from that one wave. And the goal is to try not to laugh, but nobody can succeed because the feeling is so contagious. And that's what happens in a room. And you lose that on Zoom, and you lose the idea that like you're affecting the space around you. Like, you don't know how I'm affecting this room, and you're only getting a sliver of it. You're not seeing the whole thing. This side of the room has way more magic cards than I'm willing to admit are here. But you're not getting this, and you're not feeling the wind move when I wave my arms around like I do all the time.
Yeah.
And so of course it feels so weird and so different, because there's an energy transfer that's not happening over this digital medium.
Yeah.
And I'm so thrilled and excited to feel that connection with people again. because that's what brings me joy and energy. Like I am an extrovert to the fullest. Like this kind of stuff, Zoom comedy, Zoom podcasts. My co-host on Bummer Boys, Alex Kolanko, he says it's like methadone because it's not the real thing. It's not completely scratching an itch, but it's literally the bare minimum. And that's how I feel about this. And that's why I'm so thrilled to hear, like, when I see Kanane in his van tour, like just on the road being like, I have this tour set up, but along the way I have a night in this town. What are the chances I can make this happen? He makes it happen. People show up. He's like, I'm not charging for this. And people end up paying him anyway. And he gives them a show. And he's like, it's half baked. And they're like, we don't fucking care. You're here. You're making this thing out of nothing. I'm like thrilled for that, despite the fact that Kyle and I were doing Twitch streams together for a couple of weeks, like playing video games together and being like, this is a thing we're going to keep doing. And then things just got better out there. And he kept having to be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. I'm like, don't apologize. You're doing the greatest thing in the world right now. Do you think I'm going to be mad at anybody for being able to perform safely? Do you think I'm going to be mad at anybody getting to do the best, the thing that I enjoy most in the entire world? Do you think I'm going to be jealous as fuck? Absolutely. So jealous. But I'm going to be so thrilled for you. And so to see things reopening out there, it's so nice. And it means that like the Zoom subscription is going to stay on. So maybe I can be like, Kyle, do you want to hop on my podcast again? You know, that kind of thing. Right. But, you know, if we're not in the same town or anything, but otherwise, like if somebody rolls through your town and you can sit across the table from them for a podcast, it's not even a flip of a coin decision. That's like that's a heavy yes, get them in the room. If schedule permitting, everything permitting, make it happen. There's no reason not to.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you are such a happy, bubbly personality. Are you allowing yourself to feel hope that day is coming for you? Or do you just...
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm very optimistic about it. But I have to maintain some realistic expectations, because at the beginning of the whole thing, I was like, there's no way this won't clear up in 2 months. And yet here we are. And
and you have the visa issue to contend with if you wanted to travel here, which is more open.
Well, that's a whole other problem, which I'm going to call Joe Biden himself and be like, listen here, pal. The Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedians, CASC, in Canada, has been working and lobbying with like Canadian representatives in the House, and we've been trying to get them to get the government to recognize comedy as an art form, so that we can then have the American government recognize it as, you know, like maybe a separate visa, or on the model visa, where like models can come down on a visa that they spend very little money on, because it's like, you know, $300 to be like, well, this photographer and this company want me to do this photo shoot over there. It's $300. The company pays for the $300, but then, you know, they get paid, they get to go work out there. There are no issues. Whereas with comedians, we have to find a way to prove ourselves to be aliens of extraordinary ability. Do you know who that visa's for? Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber got plucked by Usher. Everything was paid for by a multimillionaire R&B soul singer, and Justin Bieber was a child phenomenon who broke the internet at the time and was super famous and literally was turned into a pop star by this machine. And that's who that visa is for. It's not for somebody like me who has maybe a couple thousand people who are interested in seeing me here and there, and who the industry trusts to make a room of people laugh, you know, for an hour at a time, in certain markets. You know what I mean? So for me to prove that I'm an alien of extraordinary ability without being able to prove, like, without being able to start by being like, hey, Americans like me. Canada doesn't quite give a shit, but Americans like me. Without being, so if I go into it being like, I know Americans like me, and they're like, how? I'd be like, I've come over there and performed tons of times. They're like, illegally? And I'll be like, yeah. They're like, banned. I'm like, oh, great, fantastic, excellent. You know what? I tried to do things the regular way, and instead I'm going to be like, I'm a sports journalist, and I'm going to go see the soccer team out there or some shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All this to say, like, the Canadian Association of Stand-Up Comedy, if you're at all interested in learning more, I would their former president, Sandra Battellini, made a documentary called The Mayor of Comedy, and I highly recommend it. I think their website is the Mayor of Comedy. I'm gonna look it up, mayorofcomedy.com. Mayorofcomedy.com, and it's free on their website right now. It's just right there. It's right there, the top of the website. It just shows the video on Vimeo. If you want any understanding of Canadian comedy and the frustrations therein, watch this documentary. It's become like the easiest tool to just like shove into people's face and be like, I'm so tired of explaining this to like literally everybody I have to have this conversation with. And also this goes into points that I forget about, like the fact that, hey, if I pitch a show here in Canada and they like it and they're like, this is great, we would love to put this on our network, but we're not going to develop it because it costs too much to develop. And then they buy Big Bang Theory over and over again. And then we have to be like, well, what do we do with the show that you just said is great and would be an excellent addition? It's like, try to sell it to the States. It's cheaper for us to buy from the States than it is for us to make it. And it's like, your development at this company, you're literally meant to develop. So what do? It's like, I'm literally a no stamp in human form. And that's like the whole deal. So you see all this, like all these roadblocks with Canadian comedy. Thinking about Deborah DiGiovanni, Steph Tolev, Matt O'Brien, Julia Latkowitz, Heidi Brander, all the Rebecca Kohler, all these Canadian comics, and I'm not listing all of them, but I would love to. All these Canadian comics who made it in the States, who are out there working and are able to live there, went through a rigorous process of acquiring a green card and a visa, and were able to like make that happen for themselves. But it took years of being a Canadian comedy sweetheart, years of being on literally everything you can do in Canada, years of trying to get to the States quietly and having to refuse pay so that they can bolster the application. $10,000 in application and lawyers fees, and then some. If it's the green card, it's somewhere closer to like 30,000 or some crazy shit like that. If I might be mistaken on that one because I haven't been looking into a green card. So it's a whole thing with Canadian comedy. I recommend Mayor of Comedy. I also recommend if there are any ladies out in Chicago with a super thick Chicago accent that want to propose to me, I would love that. I think the Chicago accent is so funny, and I would love to make fun of you in a playful way. It's so funny to me, and it's just one of those things I'll never get bored of, and I'll be so excited to hear all the time. But seriously, if anybody, like, I don't want to be like green card marriage anyone, because then it's like this is exhibit A and me not getting my green card.
Yeah.
But it's definitely such an awful situation to be put in for a Canadian comedy.
Yeah.
That said, I am optimistic for us reopening. I don't get a lot of work in Canada. So I'm optimistic in us reopening so that I don't have to spend 2 weeks quarantining at a hotel out of my pocket when I come back from hanging out in the States.
Yeah.
You know? So.
Mike, it has been amazing to get to talk to you. I want to start wrapping up. I've got people outside my door who want to get inside.
Okay.
So
okay.
I need to wrap up. There's 3 things that I want to ask.
I will try to be succinct. I will be.
One is with this summer vacation series, especially for the comics. Well, no, for this series where I'm talking to people outside of Austin, I asked them 2 things. One is tell us why we should be checking out the Canadian comedy scene. And I'm going to make you the representative of Canada, not just Montreal/Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Give our listeners a reason for checking out your comedy scene.
The Canadian comedy scene is very strong, and that's a reason enough to come out, because what tends to happen with Canadian audiences is that we don't quite normally get a rolling laughter as much as in the States, where the laughs just keep rolling over. Canadian audiences tend to stop when you start talking again. And so we have to keep the punchlines coming. Otherwise, it sounds like you're dying up there. So a lot of Canadian comics are just machines.
Huh.
So like there are people that are doing incredible work. Like I can sincerely say like Arthur Simeon, Deborah DiGiovanni, Nour Hadidi, Brendon Mohammed, Hoodo Hersi, Mark Forward, well, obviously Steph Tolev. You've got like a bunch of amazing Canadian comics out there. Ivan Decker, Deanne Smith, who is American, but we claim her because she's we claim them because they started in Montreal. Right. You know, Rodney, Ramsey, like a ton of really, really great Sterling Scott, Graham Clark, Sophie Buddle, Mayce Galoni, Jacob Samuel apparently just won a Juno Award last night, Nick Nemeroff and Matt Wright, a ton of amazing Canadian comics who you put them on a show with American comics, they will slay. It's not a question of whether or not they can hang. Oh, we can hang. Yeah. It's we've been conditioned to like have to go at this speed. And that's how you get people like Tolev and Deb DiGiovanni and Ivan Decker out in the States and being like, Steph is utterly beloved by the American comedy scene out in LA. Yeah. Deborah DiGiovanni was the bane of the scene because she was too funny. There is no reason for you to not come check out the scene aside from the fact that it is pretty small. Like the Canadian scene, we have a lot of really good comics. Like we have a handful of cities that are worth checking out. Like Montreal, we need to work on getting more shows happening again once things open up again, because we only have the one club, but we have Montreal, Toronto, excellent scenes. So Toronto and Vancouver are the two scenes that you'll hear most about. Winnipeg had a healthy scene. Edmonton must be the other one that's doing okay in Alberta, and then the East Coast. So Halifax was also but Prince Edward Island is also apparently booming right now because they're one of the only places in Canada that's open to doing shows live. So we have a lot of places and a lot of comics that are worth your time. I think what I would recommend, rather than being like, come check out our scene, like, yes, come check out our scene. You'll 100% be drawn to Montreal, Vancouver, and Toronto. And to that, I say, hit me up. If you're a comic traveling up, more likely, to one of our cities, hit me up. I will try to get you in touch with the right people. If we don't know each other, please get somebody to vouch, obviously. Yeah. But like, we try to be as hospitable as possible. We try to be as like welcoming and helpful as we can. And we'll show you the right shows and you will have fun. We can't guarantee you'll do well because you're not adjusted to the fact that audiences will stop laughing immediately the second that you start saying a word. Mm-hmm. But you'll have fun. You'll learn, you'll get it, you'll enjoy it. I would say look into Canadian comics and please email me. MikeCarrozzaComedy@gmail.com. Email me. I will send you a full list of Canadian comics and their albums that you should check out. I have no problem doing this. I do this for everybody. People email me. It's on the back jacket of my album. It says email me and I will tell you, like, get in contact with me and I will tell you about comics and their albums. The best thing to do would be to like check out Canadian comics and then ask yourself why we don't get paid or played as much as American comics. And the answer is Canadian industry sucks. Yeah.
Well, you were very efficient with that because my second question is some Canadian comics that we should be checking out. You gave us a treasure trove of comics that we should be checking out.
I've got more.
I'm sure you do. And I was very excited because two of the names that you mentioned are people that I've interviewed. So it was very, very exciting.
Who did you speak to?
I talked to Mark Forward and I've talked to Deanne Smith when they came through Moon Tower. So
yes, yeah, Deanne. That's a newish development with Deanne. So we're getting used to it, but they're one of my oldest friends in comedy, and it's
they're very, very nice with me. Yeah. Okay, well, your final question is one word to describe your future.
Hired. What's happening, everybody? You're damn right.
Hired.
I'm done not getting hired. Okay.
Do it.
Staff me in your writers' rooms. I'm a fun energy and I make bits work. Put me on your shows. I'm a fun energy and I make bits work. I'm a fun, silly boy, and I'm ready to just get me in there. Yeah. That's hired. Get me working because I am I'm not going to stop working.
Oh, this has been so much fun. That is a wrap on Comedy Wham presents Mike Carrozza. Mike, tell us where we can find you on social media, and then do another little final promo push.
Best thing to do would be to check out my Linktree. So Linktree, linktr.ee/Mike Carrozza. My name is Mike Carrozza, MikeCarrozza. Once you know how to spell that, I'm pretty easy to find. At Mike Carrozza on Twitter, at Mike Carrozza on Instagram, Mike Carrozza 91 on Twitch, which I do sometimes. I have a Discord server where a lot of friends and fans interact and have a nice time. We play some Jackbox games every week, and we watch movies together, and sometimes just like hang out with other comics and like a voice chat as a fun show idea. I have 2 podcasts, Bummer Boys, xBummerxBoysx. It's spelled like a bad hardcore band, but it's Bummer Boys, where we talk about songs that made us sad this week. And then We Didn't Get a Rose, my podcast with Chris Mejia out in Seattle, Washington, about The Bachelor. It's a Bachelor recap podcast. So The Bachelor and Bachelorette, Katie's season starts Monday. So June 7th, baby, we get to watch my wife fall in love with not me. Was a huge fan of Katie. I'm excited to see what she does with her season. And we're back next Wednesday, baby.
Exciting. Boy, you are busy.
Gotta find a way to fill the days.
Yeah. Well, we hope you've enjoyed learning about how Mike got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, and just all American, not all Canadian, not all American cheerleader that you heard today just as much as I have. This has been Comedy Wham presents Mike Carrozza. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Val. Comedy genius. So nice.